Hi, this is Gayle from BERNINA of Naperville, and the weather's getting cool, but we're staying warm as we cozy up and make our Embroidery Sampler 2 blocks. And this month is block 3, and we're doing some quilting in the hoop. We are making a garland, we're continuing with our stitch and flip, and we're making some embroidered appliques. Now, another change this month that we're doing is, hey, we are adjusting our stitch and flip to make it more efficient. I think you all have graduated to that by now. Let's hope, right? Well, let's see all of the things that we need to get started. All right, so for block 2, we're going to use these 5 thread colors. It's going to be the 0015 white, the 0504 mimosa, the 5542 garden moss, the 1805 strawberry, and 4515 in spruce. Now we're going to quilt in the hoop with the cerulean eggshell thread. I'm also using that as my bobbin fill for my embroidered patches, but you could use your regular bobbin fill if you wanted to. And for the fabrics, we've got PE 506, that's sugar plum, PE 470 in lavender water, PE 427 in spiceberry, and PE 493 in plum preserve. For cutting, listen, this is what you want to do. You want to take your plum preserve, that's the darkest one, and you're going to cut one 3-inch strip and then subcut that into 8 3-inch squares and cut that in half diagonally. That's going to give you that little half square triangle that's on the end. And then the spiceberry, well, that's the next darkest color, and you're going to need 6 1.5-inch strips of those that are going to be cut ultimately into 32 7-inch pieces. The sugar plum is just slightly lighter than the spiceberry, and you're going to cut 2 3-inch strips of that and then subcut that into 16 3-inch by 8-inch pieces. And finally, with the lavender water, we're going to cut 2 3-inch strips that are also cut into 16 3-inch by 8-inch pieces. And then for the white little square, we just need 1 3-inch strip that's cut into 3-inch squares, and you're going to need 8 3-inch squares that are cut in half diagonally. So before we start our embroidery extravaganza, we want to prep the file. So remember the past couple of months, we've had to embroider in the top of the hoop and then in the bottom of the hoop, but I think you have graduated to learning how we're going to fix this so that we can save our file. So we're going to go to our stick that has our pieced to perfection designs, and we're going to pick 12736603. And now I'm going to select my hoop, and this month I'm using a maxi hoop. So I'm going to go down here to the maxi and select that. And then I'm going to put that up in the top of my hoop. And then I'm going to hit my little I button to make a copy. And then I'm going to put this piece right below it. Now I want to select this first group here and ungroup it. Which is, if you're down here in this part of your machine and you take your finger and you scroll, you are going to discover this group embroidery motifs button. And we just want to ungroup it. And then once that piece has been ungrouped, we're going to scroll up, uppity up, to our next piece here and ungroup that one. And now color number 13 in this application is our second piece that we want to perforate. So we're going to hit the I button and we're going to use our rearrange embroidery motifs button. That is this 1, 2, 3 layer here. And now with 13 highlighted, we're going to use this down arrow right here, and we're going to move that all the way down until it's going to stitch just after that first design, and now we're going to close it. Now there's one more thing that I want to do. I want to get rid of this right here because it's a repetition of this. And so basically I think we've graduated to not having to repeat these two processes. So we are going to delete number 4. Hit the green check mark. And now we're going to go up here and we're going to get rid of number 14. hit the green check mark. And then lastly, one thing that we want to do is rearrange our final outline stitch so they all stitch together. And that is because I want to kind of take it over to the iron and press everything at the same time. So if we go through all of these different steps, we're going to scroll up until we find that final outline stitch for our top block here. Okay, I'm going to use my rearrange icon, or I'm going to use my rearrange icon. And now I'm going to move this guy right to be next to this other square, just like that. So now once that I've done that, guess what? It's time to close this out and save. And now we're going to save the design onto your machine. And now this is going to stitch these two things together, this one, then this one, and then it's just going to go through all of the pieces for that hooping and then all of the pieces for that hooping. But that's going to save you a lot of time and trouble this month.
All right, now that we have reordered our stitch and flip block, it's time to stitch out one hooping's worth. And don't forget, one hooping's worth is a set. You're making two. So we're just going to do our perforation round. Okay, so now that this is done, we're going to thread it up, and then I'm going to show you why we skipped one of our stitches here to make it easier. We eliminated the tack down, or we eliminated the placement line because we already know where we need to place this. So I have put the light color, light pink piece on top of the medium pink piece, just like this, these two pieces together. Now I'm going to line this up like this, hanging about 1/4 of an inch over my perforated edge right there. And then we're just going to stitch this down and get it nice and straight. There we go. Now it's skipping that stitch and going straight to our tack down line for our piece number 3, because we sewed piece number 1 and 2 at the same time. now we rearranged our outline stitch that's supposed to hold these pieces down just so I could press it all at the iron at the same time. So now we're advancing again back to this tack down stitch because we eliminated the placement stitch on this piece. So we're going to take our piece number 1 and piece number 2 and line those up together, and now we can just simply stitch both of these at the same time. Okay, so now before we stitch the last 2 colors, which are the outline pieces to tack all of our floppy pieces down, we're going to press and then return the hoop. We're not going to take it out of the hoop, we're just going to take the hoop off of the machine and come back. One tip you might want to try this month is I have a maxi hoop and a jumbo hoop for my 880, and some of you might have a maxi hoop and a mega hoop for your 770s. Well, I have been doing my hoopings all, you know, like kind of like, so I have one hooped ready to go after one finishes. So it's just a way to use some of those hoops where, you know, several of these can do the project. You might, you know, want to give that a try multitasking. I don't know, just thought I'd put that out there as an idea for you. And now the last piece, or the last color, or segment, however you want to think of it. And don't forget, these are just 2 in our block, but we are going to need 14 more because there are 16 of these that make up this month's block. Okay, so now we can do the very satisfying task of trimming our blocks and pulling all of that pesky stabilizer off the back. I mean, some of you might find that to be the most fun part of the project. I don't know. But anyway, so we're going to peel the stabilizer off, trim down, do all of the good bits, then meet you back at the sewing machine where we're going to sew these blocks into sets of 4 patches, sets of 4s. I thought I'd share with you a little technique that you may want to try. And here is the way that our block is going to look. The white center here, just like this. You might want to try stitching this together with the stabilizer still on it. It'll help just give all of these bias areas just a little bit more stability. So what that means is we're going to go over to our sewing machine, use our straight stitch, our 1/4 inch foot. I'm using the 97 regular, no D, and straight stitch needle plate. And then I'm going to lower my stitch length lower than the normal 2.5. I'm going to go to 1.8. That's the same length that you would use for foundation paper piecing. And I'm going to stitch this together. That'll help perforate the stabilizer so I can tear it away, but keeping the stabilizer on there while I piece my 4 little pieces it's going to really be helpful for me as I construct the rest of this block. So let's take all of the rest of our blocks and fashion them together like this and sew our 4 patches. All right, so once you get your quadrant created, it's time to hoop it. And we want to do some really cool little vines around here. And I think you're going to love this 8.5 inch square hoop that works perfectly on the 7 series and the 8 series Berninas. So it's pretty easy to use. All you're going to do is take a piece of the medium or heavyweight tearaway stabilizer. It's a 1-piece hoop like this, see? And you lay this down on here and you get 12 little clamps like this. So I'm going to just squeeze these guys into position, get everything snapped in nicely, And, you know, honestly, it's pretty easy to do this. And then once you get everything clipped in, you're going to spray this with your 505 spray. And just, you know, make sure it kind of sticks there. And then I want to lay this down right in the center. Now, this is just a little bit more than 8.5 inches, but I'm just going to place this in. I don't even have to use the placement template that comes with this. It's like a little 1/8 of an inch plexiglass piece. Don't need it for this. And then I'm going to use my pinpoint placement to actually get everything centered nicely in the hoop. So one key that we're going to do is we're going to take our design, which is like this vine design, and I've changed the colors. And then I'm also going to combine it in my embroidery software to create a design I like. If you don't have the embroidery software, that's totally fine. It can also be done on your machine. So here are a couple videos. The first one is doing it within the software, and the second one is doing it on the machine. But whichever way you choose, then we're going to come back and do it this way. Now, here's a reminder: if you do not have a BERNINA 7 or 8 series machine, and you have a machine that can't do quite an 8.5 inch wide piece, then just like we did last month, you're going to create those templates, and you're going to stitch your designs individually around the frame. Because ultimately, we're going to be creating a little garland border just like this. Okay, so our block this month, block 3, is made up of 3 different embroidery designs to embellish our piece to perfection block. The first one that we're going to use is our garland, and the garland goes around the block like you saw me just show. And then the next embroidery design is actually quilting in the hoop design, and we did something similar. And then the final design is going to be an applique design, and I'm going to show you how to create these as we make the block. So the first one that we're going to need to embroider using that super awesome medium clamp hoop that you just saw, the square hoop, is we're going to make our garland. So we want to do a few things to this first. So we're going to start off just by simply selecting all of this design. And you can do select all a few different ways. One of my favorite ways is to go up to edit and just simply hit select all. But when I'm really busy, I use my keyboard commands. And you can see here, if you hold down the control button plus A, that will allow me to select all. Just like that. And now there's 2 ways to view this design. You can see it in artistic view, and that shows the stitches. But you know what I don't like about this sometimes is I can't really tell exactly what's selected. But if we turn off show artistic view, we can see that indeed with this bold fuchsia here, everything is selected. So now that everything's selected, I also want to make sure that my measuring system is in US rather than metric. And if it's in metric, you can just hit this little drop-down menu and pick US. And we're going to change the height, making sure that this little locking mechanism here is locked. And we're going to swipe and type in 5.5 because we want this little piece here to be 5.5 in height. And then you're going to hit enter on your keyboard, just like that. Now, I'm going to deselect by clicking away from the hoop, and I want to change the colors. So let's go to Design, Thread Colors. And we basically are going to be taking this garland and making it a 3-color design. So this dark brown right here, we want to make sure that we're in our thread chart, which says Embroidery Sampler 2. And this dark brown is going to be our garden moss, which is 5542. And a sign.
And the stem and other pieces too are going to be the same 5542 garden moss. 1761 and here are colors number 3 and 4 are going to be white. So we're going to scroll up here and assign, and then assign white again to this 4th color. And then finally, we want to take this last colored, color number 5, and make that mimosa and assign, and then say apply and OK. And now you can see our new colors there. Now, the only thing is this is now, we see like 5 different colors here. So we want to make this 3. So all I'm going to do here is select this 2 and go down here to my color chart here and change it to 1. And I want to do the same with color number 4 and change that to 3. And now that we have the 3 colors here, I can go down to this little button where this is the discard unused colors. So if I select this, it will indeed make it simply 3 colors. Now I want to select all again, and remember I can either go to Edit, Select All, or I can hold Control and A down at the same time to select everything. Now, to make our garland, what I want to do is scroll down here to Mirror Merge and make a wreath. And I want to make sure that the wreath is 4. And look at this. Now, as I drag my mouse into my embroidery field, I can line this up so cutely, just like that. And then I left click. And there's our garland. I'm going to go back here to select all again and just check the size. And the size is 6.566, and that's the right size that we need. So my advice to you, if you have a 5 series, is just to take your little black corner piece and just drag it until it's about like 6.325. You're barely going to notice that you made that smaller. But I'm just going to undo my piece here because I'm using my 880 with that medium clamp hoop. And so I'm going to find that on my list and OK, and make sure that it's back to 6.566. And this is the size I'm going to stitch it, and then I'm going to send it to my machine with my favorite method. Okay, so if you don't have the software and you want to make the garland square, no problem. We can do it right on our machine. So what we're going to do is I have my USB stick loaded with my Divine Flowers and Vines, and we're using number 10 right there that you see. And the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to enlarge or reduce. I want to reduce my garland so that it's 5.5 inches tall. Now, if you do not have your machine set to inches, you just go over to your gears, go to your embroidery hoop, and then go to this measuring tape right there, and you can choose either millimeters or inches. And for this application, we want to make sure that we have inches selected. And now that I know I have that, I'm going to hit my resize button here, and I'm going to use my top knob to reduce the size until 5.5 shows up right there. There we go. And now it's time to change the color. So I'm going to close out of my editing screen and go to my artist palette. And like you saw me do on the software version, I'm going to change our colors. And we're using 5542 for our first 2 colors. So I'm going to go ahead and select 5542 for both of those. Then I'm going to change colors 3 and colors 4 to white. And then for whatever reason, 504 isn't loaded on this simulator. So I'm just going to pick this brighter yellow instead, but you're going to use color number 504. And there's our design. Now I can move this over here. Now I'm using my jumbo hoop, and that's how I'm framing my design.
Yes, I will be stitching this out on the medium square clamp hoop, but my simulator doesn't have the medium square hoop. Also, if you're using a 5 series, I'm going to show you how you are going to reduce this to fit the midi hoop. But right now we just need to make our garland frame. So now I'm going to hit my I button again, and I'm going to make a copy of this vine and rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to put it into place like that so it makes a nice little right angle. And then I'm going to select my bottom layer just like that. And then I'm going to go back to my I button and make a copy. And then I'm going to take that copy and rotate it 90 degrees and 90 degrees. And then I can wiggle that into position like so. Then finally, I'm going to select the bottom piece that is all the layers selected. I'm going to go to my move around icon, and then I'm going to put that right in the center. And now you can see that this is 6.6 by 6.6. Now, for those of you that have the larger machines that can take that medium square hoop, all you're going to do right now is save your design. And so we're going to go up to the folder, hit the little heart button, select the design loaded on your machine, and select the green check mark. If you have a BERNINA 5 series and you're working with a midi hoop, see how that is just a little bit too large for the midi hoop? You're going to hit your I button and your enlarge and reduce button, and you're going to reduce just 1% so it fits in the hoop. And that makes it about 6.5 by 6.5. You can barely even tell the difference. Now, you might want to make it just a little bit smaller. Like I told you in the video, it was at about 6.3. And that reason is if you don't get it hooped up just perfectly, you have a little bit of wiggle room there. But now we're going to save this one. And it gets saved onto your 5 series, just the same as on our 8 series. Make sure you save it on the machine and hit the green check mark. And now we're ready to stitch it out. So once we stitch it out, we're going to have this screen, and it says we have 20 color changes, but if we go ahead and do this color resequencing, we'll have 6. Now, for some reason, it just does not interpret this little guy down there to jive, but that's okay. 6 color changes is a lot less than 20, and so now we're ready to stitch it out. Okay, this just in. If you want to make sure that this is 3 color changes, like incorporate this final garland in with things, you actually just go through and send it to the machine like you're going to stitch it out, but then you're going to go back to your edit crayon, and then you're going to go to your information button, and you're going to select this whole design here and ungroup it. And that you ungroup by hitting that minus button. Then you're going to take this top layer, hit the I and the breadcrumbs, and go to the resequence or relayer and move that down to where it's the next color after 1, and then take this 5th layer and move it down until it's right after 3. And now we're going to close, and we're going to go to stitch it out again, and then we're going to hit our thread sequencing one more time, and now that has reduced our colors to 3. And at this point, you would probably want to save this onto your machine. Once you get everything all lined up, it's time to make sure that everything is centered. And there's a couple ways that you can do that, of course. You can go simply to check and then put your needle in the center of the design, just like this, and move your multifunction knobs until the design is sitting right on top of that intersection. Or you could use pinpoint placement, because did I get this super straight? I don't know. And pinpoint placement, if you have it, is a great way to kind of make that determination. If we go here, this is the icon for pinpoint placement. And I'm going to use the grid and I'm going to put it in the center, which it is in the center because I just did that. But if I line, and if I say set, and I line this guy up here, I can either use my multifunction knobs to move the needle this way or that way, depending on where it is in the piece. And as we can see here, I need to move my needle over just a little bit to get it right on that line. Then I'm going to touch this button and look at my hoop. And I can see that right there, it's exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and say set. And now I'm ready to stitch this out. Now another thing I want to point out is I want to stitch the edges or baste the edges of my piece down. So I'm going to choose basting. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because I don't have anything squeezed into the hoop. And this will help hold that fabric to the stabilizer while it does all of its stitching. So I'm going to hold my top thread and I'm going to use my, see my needle up down button here? I'm going to do that thread up command that you learned last month. And I'm going to pull my bottom thread or my bobbin fill thread that's in the bottom there up to the top. And I'm going to hold on to this while it does the basting. Now this thread will be removed at the end. Okay, so now I'm ready to continue with my stitch cycle.
All right, look at this. So once you have taken all the stabilizer off the back and gotten it out of your square clamp hoop, we just need to sew these bits together. So we're gonna just sew these two together, and then sew our 2 rows together. Being careful, using our stiletto, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so now that our piece is totally stitched together, we are going to baste this guy and get it ready in our hoop. And then we are going to see a little demonstration about how we created the in the hoop quilting design. All right, so now we are going to open a design from our Piece to Perfection, and it's one of the quilting designs. And there's lots of different quilting designs on this in this package. And we're going to use design number 16. All right, so another one of my favorite tools, and I'm just going to open the midi hoop here. So I'm just going to fit to hoop. Because I want to show you that those of you with the BERNINA 5 series, you're going to be able to do this. So what I want to do is I want to take my design and I'm going to select it,
And then I'm going to use the mirror merge horizontal and vertical tools. And we are going to line these guys up so they make a perfect little motif, just like this. So they're kissing, and yes, we want to merge the overlapped objects. And now I want to select this so that it measures 4 3/4 inches. And now you can see that this one is slightly not 4 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my proportional scaling and just change this to 4 3/4. Barely going to notice the difference, but there we go. And now the cool thing about doing this and saying that we wanted to go ahead and merge this is that it's not going to stop from one unit to the next. It's going to complete stitching this as a continuous line. And that's the benefit of doing this in the software. But if you don't have software, don't worry. You can do this in your machine as well. And let's look at that. All right, we're going to go back to our USB stick now, and we're going to choose our Pieced to Perfection collection, and we are choosing design number 16. And the first thing that I want to do is move it over, just about like that, and then I am going to make a copy. And I'm going to take that copy and rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to line it up into position just like this. And if you have to put on your magnifying glass here to see what's happening, then that's fine. And then I'm going to move this around so that I get my little lines lined up just like that. So now I'm going to zoom out so I see the whole thing again. And now I'm going to go down here to this bottom layer, go to my eye and my breadcrumbs, make a copy, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees once and 90 degrees twice. Then move it down into the bottom part of the hoop, put on my little magnifying glass again to have a look at it. Make sure that my little hand is highlighted so I can pan over and here to make sure that, and now do the move icon, and now make sure I get that into place perfectly, just like that. And now I'm going to zoom out again, select the whole thing, and now we want to reduce this so that it measures 4 3/4 inches. There we go. All right. So now that we have this, we're ready to save it. I'm going to just do a little bit here with my move around tools, and I'm going to place it in the center of the hoop. But I'm going to go ahead now and save this onto my sewing machine. Okay, for the next phase of our block 3, we've basted our quilt together, and now we're going to put our design right where we want it here. Now, I have to kind of keep into consideration that little pro tip is you might want to cut this month's block a little bit larger than the 2 inches bigger that I recommend, but that's okay because we can do a couple of things. I could just move my block down in here and just center it when we get there on these pieces here, because our design is filling this area here and we have some wiggle room. Or we could just hoop up water-soluble stabilizer in our hoop, and that will just allow us to float the design. But I am actually opting to not do that because I don't want to have to dampen my project and all of that. So I'm just going to kind of line this up down here like this so I get a nice area to squeeze into the hoop all the way around. So I'm going to lift this up gently, just like this, keeping everything nice and straight. And then I'm just going to center this into our square hoop, just like this. Now, of course, if you do not have the square hoop, don't worry. You can do this in the maxi hoop or the jumbo hoop. And all you would have to do there is just float it like we've been doing and baste around if that is what is attractive to you. So I'm going to put my clips on. Another thing I found with these is that I don't always have to use all of these clips. I can use just a couple of the clips. And by a couple, I mean like a couple on each side, you know? Because sometimes it gets a little tight. And this hoop is brand new. And I find that these little clips are tending to limber up a little bit the more use it gets. But I've actually two of these hoops. I have one that I use at the store that has had a lot more use. And then, of course, the one that I have here at home. Just sometimes, okay. I did get them all on there. All right, so here we are, and I am going to take my needle and I want to move it to the center of the design, which also is going to line up right on the very center intersection of my 4-patch block that's here. So I am going to use my pinpoint placement, grid, and touch the center and use my multifunction knobs to go right to the very center of this design. And I need to move it over to the right just a little bit as well. Now my design is about 4 3/4 inches, and you saw me make that right in the software. You can also create this on your sewing machine if you'd like, but the software makes it a little bit easier. And don't forget, I also have the prepped file that I made here for you as well. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. I'm pretty sure it's nice and straight. If I wanted to double check where it's going to be stitching around my hoop, I can go ahead and hit these 4 corners, or I could select and make sure that it's hitting in the centers of my design as well. But I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's set it and stitch it out. And I'm going to do my thread up command to pull my bobbin thread up here. And this thread that I'm using is the Cerulean, and we know that it's pretty fine, so I'm going to use my tweezers to pull that thread up. And now I'm all set to go. I'm going to go ahead and press the stitch button and let it do its thing. And now don't forget that I have this threaded for regular sewing and not for embroidery, because I want my quilting stitches to be balanced. Okay, so now that we have one, we're just going to repeat this 3 more times to do the other 3 quadrants. So let's have a look at the back just to check the tension and see if we're happy. I don't see any whiskering or eyelashing, so that looks good. And then of course the front looks awesome. And I'm going to go through after I do these little quadrants, and I'm going to do some other stitching in here, but very minimal. You know, the star of the show should be our little quadrants here. But let's go ahead and get this finished up. So here is our block. It's almost done. So the main quilting that was done on this is our design that goes in here. Okay, but I needed just a little something, but didn't really want to spend too much time quilting. So I used the 2101, our darker red, and I stitched in the ditch around all of our little diamonds and these diamonds. So if you look really close, you can see it. And if you look on the back, you can kind of see the pattern. So this block is almost done. The last detail is making patches. So we're going to start, hey, it's rinse and repeat around here. Remember last month when we did the little flower out of the other motif? Well, we're going to do that again, but this time we're going to grab a different flower, change the colors, stitch it out, and then we're going to applique them onto the centers right here. Okay, as we head into the home stretch, we're going to open a new design. And we're going to open a design from our Divine Flower and Vines. And this one is from BE110214. So we're just going to open that one. And we want to pick this flower right here. So we're going to go to our polygon select. And we're going to go just around this. And we want to make sure that we grab all of our flower and we don't cut off any tips of our flower. And then we're going to copy, pick a new design, and paste. Now the next thing that we want to do is go up here and make sure we didn't grab any weird bits. And we did grab a weird bit. It's this color, so let's just click on that and hit delete. And then I want you to go down here and discard any unused colors. And now this is only going to be 3 colors, but you can see that there's 5 here. So we need to do a little bit of surgery to this. So once again, we're going to go up to Design, Thread Colors, making sure that we're still picking from our Embroidery Sampler 2 chart. And this number 1 right here is going to be yellow, and we're going to assign that. This 2 is going to be the 1805 strawberry, so we're going to assign that one. And then this lighter one so this one is going to be the yellow. We're going to assign. This 2 is going to be the 1805 strawberry and assign. 4332 is going to be our white, and we're going to assign that. Then the brown is actually going to be a new color that we're using. That's spruce number 4515. Assign. And then the final color is also going to be yellow. So we're going to pick that 504, and assign. And now we hit apply and OK. And now that looks fantastic, I think. But the one thing we want to be mindful of is these 2 colors are going to be the same color. So we actually want to take 5 here and just select color number 1. And then once again, select discard unused colors. And now we're ready to send this to our machine. Okay, for those of you that do not have the software, you are up for a challenge. Now, you can only do this on machines that allow you to group and ungroup. So make sure that your model Bernina allows for group and ungroup. So we're going to go to our stick, look for our Divine Flowers and Vines,
and we are looking for that BE110214 design. Now we're going to go to our I button and we're going to ungroup our design. And ungroup is this minus button there. Then we're going to delete some of the things we know we don't want, and that's these first three designs right there. So I'm going to hit my I button, have the first thing selected, hit delete, confirm, click this, hit delete, green check mark to confirm, click this, delete, and green check mark to confirm. Now let's scroll up and see if there's any obvious other things that we don't need. This is one we can delete, this little dot out there in outer space. But some of these others are a bit more tricky. For instance, we have another group here that we need only bits of. So now we're going to go back to our ungroup icon and we're going to ungroup it. And then what we want to do is kind of click on this, and that's over here, that's not in our flower. So we're going to click out of our I button now and we're going to delete and confirm, 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 delete and confirm. And if you don't want to keep doing that, we can go back here and group the things together that we are sure that we do not want in our piece. But that's about as far as we can get with that, because this next one I know is part of our flower. So I'm going to delete this little grouping right here. And now that's part of our flower. This is part of our flower. This is part of our flower, but this isn't, so I can delete and confirm, delete and confirm, clicking on this one. Notice that I'm clicking on the ones that aren't in my flower field there. Delete, confirm, delete, confirm, delete, and confirm. So now we have these pieces. So it might be safe to go ahead and glue these darker pieces together so that they're together. This one looks good, I want to keep it. This one has some elements that we want to ungroup. And I know these leaves I don't want, so we can kind of glue those together. But I don't want this, I don't want these, but I do want that center one right there. So I'm going to go back to my eye with the breadcrumbs and now delete. See how that one is highlighted? So I can delete it. And I can get rid of my leaf and some of my other leaf pieces. And now it looks like everything left is part of my flower. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now I'm going to assign my colors. So this is going to be my 1805 strawberry red. The same with this one. And the same with this one. This one is going to be white. And this is going to be our spruce. And now let's go back to edit. There it is. And then finally, our center. But we have to remember that 504 isn't here. So I'm just going to pick another yellow one. And that will remind me that that is my color. All right, so there we go. And now we're going to save it onto our machine. And we're ready to stitch them out. And don't forget, when you are ready to stitch these out, we're going to go here, and I like to just
go to group my designs if I've done my editing on my machine. So I'm going to just select this and group together so it's easy to manage. And now I want to put one piece over here. Then I'm going to make a copy and then another copy. And I'm just going to put these together just like that. And I'm ready to stitch it out. And it's much easier to go ahead and use your large oval for this, hooped up with 1 or 2 layers of poly mesh. I'm going to use my large hoop and some poly mesh stabilizer. Now, this is one of those, if you want your appliques to be a little hardier, then you're going to want to use 2 layers. I'm only going to use 1 layer because I want it to be a little wispier. But if you're timid or, you know, you're doing this for the first time, double up on the stabilizer. It's fine. We're only going to do 1 hooping. So we're going to put all 4 little flowers in 1 hooping. And but you're just going to hoop up the stabilizer only. Poly mesh is a polyester stabilizer. It is a cutaway stabilizer. It looks a little like aqua mesh, but it does not wash away. It will soften up a little bit after it's been washed, but pretty much we would use this for apparel fabric, embroidering on a t-shirt, embroidering on some jackets, things like that. But I also like to use it anytime I want to kind of turn a normal embroidery design into some kind of an applique. I just want to squeeze this in the hoop and take it over to my machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is I prefer to just stitch all 4 of these in our hoop at the same time. So you saw how I just took my finger and moved the design over there like that? Well, now I'm going to make a copy and it just puts it right under it like that. And we need to make 4 of these. So I'm going to take another one and then make 1 more. And it just naturally kind of puts them into position, although there's an OCD side of me that wants to kind of line them up like that. But we're going to leave these in there like that. I'm going to close. I'm going to send this to my embroidery ready. And then we're going to use a new tool, which is our thread sequencing. This is the red spool, yellow spool, red spool. We're going to use that. And now that's going to combine all of our colors together, so they're all going to stitch out at the same time. And our first color is 1805, and let's go for it. All right, so here's our cute little design. I'm just going to pop this out of the hoop. And now we're going to take sharp scissors and trim this. Now, this is poly mesh stabilizer, 1 layer. So this is not going to dissolve in water. So you just really have to trim it close to the stitches without cutting the stitches. And I'm going to share with you that maybe 2 layers would have been better. So if you have 2 layers, go ahead and use 2 layers, but I just used 1. And now sewing this on, there's a couple of options. We could leave like our edges open like this, or we could go around and stitch the edges down just like you would applique a piece of fabric on there. That's up to you, however you want to bring this to life. So there's 1 piece. And we'll just cut all of these pieces out. All right, so I'm going to switch out my foot. I'm keeping my yellow thread in there, but I'm switching my foot out to my number 1C, and I am picking a buttonhole type design. It is number 62. It is a little eyelet stitch. I'm also remembering to use my 9mm needle plate and to tell my machine that I have the number 1C on here. And now we're going to go through all of these layers and stitch our little flower in the middle of our piece right here. So it just does that little circle right there in the middle of your piece. I mean, this is fun and easy. And our last one right here.
Okay, it is not too late to sign up for our Embroidery Sampler 2 project. You just visit BERNINAofNaperville.com and search Embroidery Sampler 2, and there you will see that you can buy the full kit or you can buy the digital files. Now, I really highly encourage you to do the full kit because you get exactly the colors that we used, exactly the fabric that we're using for the back, and all of the threads and the designs and so forth. It's just really easy. But if that's not possible for you, the digital files are also available. The digital files are also available if you're watching in another country, because you know we don't ship physical product outside of the US. So that might be an option if you're watching from far and away. Hey, this is also a reminder. So next month, which is coming up on November, we are going to be doing this via Zoom. So that means even those of you that would normally come to the store for our monthly Zoom meetings for the Embroidery Sampler 2, we're going to do it via Zoom because I'm going to be out of town. So if you are joining us remotely and you are far and away from Naperville, Illinois, you can join into this Zoom call too. I'll be setting that invitation later in November, closer to the date. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy making this month's block, and don't forget to check out our BERNINA of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/BERNINA of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. See ya.